There's a bottle sitting in a lot of bathroom cabinets right now, half full, quietly abandoned. Collagen powder, collagen capsules, a jar that promised firmer skin, stronger nails, fewer lines, and delivered at best a shrug. If you've ever wondered whether you were doing something wrong, you probably weren't. The problem was never really you. There's a much older, much simpler source of the same thing, and it's been sitting in kitchens for generations, long before anyone thought to put collagen into a capsule and sell it for $40 a jar. If you're somewhere between 40 and 70, this is probably a familiar feeling. Skin doesn't bounce back the way it used to. Joints feel a little stiffer some mornings. And somewhere along the way, you were told that the solution was a supplement, something in a bottle, something you buy rather than something you make. This video isn't about telling you that supplements are useless or that you've wasted your money. It's about something simpler and honestly a little more reassuring. The idea that one of the most effective sources of collagen isn't a product at all. It's a bowl of soup. In many Japanese households, broth made slowly from fish or bones has been part of everyday cooking for a very long time, not as a health trend, but simply as food. Nobody sat down one day and decided this would be an anti-aging strategy. It was just how meals were made, out of practicality and flavor. But the nutritional logic behind it happens to align closely with what we now understand about how the body absorbs and uses collagen, and that's worth taking seriously without turning it into something mystical. Let's start with why oral collagen, in general, has such an inconsistent reputation. When you eat any protein, including collagen from a supplement or from food, your digestive system breaks it down into individual amino acids and smaller peptides before it's absorbed. Your body doesn't send the collagen molecule intact to your skin. It disassembles it and decides, based on what it needs, how to reassemble those building blocks elsewhere. This is why collagen supplements aren't magic, and it's also why the idea that collagen in food doesn't work either isn't quite right. What actually seems to matter is giving the body a steady, varied supply of these amino acids and cofactors, so it has what it needs to produce its own collagen efficiently. This is where slow-cooked broth becomes genuinely interesting, not because it's exotic, but because of what ends up in the pot. The first point worth understanding is what's actually released during a long, slow simmer. When fish bones, cartilage, or skin are cooked gently for hours, collagen breaks down into gelatin and smaller peptides, along with amino acids like glycine and proline, which happen to be some of the specific building blocks your body uses to produce its own collagen. This isn't a rare secret. It's basic food chemistry, the same reason bone broth turns gelatinous when it cools in the refrigerator. That gel is a visible sign that collagen has broken down into a form your body can actually use. Picture a woman named Emiko, in her early 60s, who has made a version of this broth every week for as long as she can remember. She never thought of it as a treatment for anything. It was simply what her mother made, and her mother before her. She'll use the head and bones of a fish, sometimes a whole small fish, simmered gently with a piece of kelp and a few slices of ginger for an hour or more, until the kitchen smells like something warm and unhurried. She never worried about dosages or percentages. She just made soup. The second point is about consistency rather than intensity. A supplement gives you a concentrated, isolated dose once a day. A bowl of broth, eaten as part of a regular meal, gives your body a smaller but steadier supply, alongside other nutrients your body needs to actually use that collagen, like vitamin C, zinc, and other amino acids found naturally in vegetables and other parts of the meal. Collagen production isn't a single ingredient story. Your body needs several nutrients working together, and a bowl of soup, especially one with vegetables and other whole foods added in, tends to deliver more of that full picture than an isolated powder does. This matters for a very practical reason. If you're someone who has tried collagen supplements and felt like nothing happened, it may not be because collagen doesn't work. It may be because a single isolated ingredient, without the surrounding nutrients your body needs to actually use it, is only part of the equation. The third point is about what makes this realistic for someone anywhere in the world, not just in a Japanese kitchen. You don't need a specific fish, and you don't need an expensive cut of meat. Any bones or cartilage, whether from fish, chicken, or other sources you already have access to, can be simmered slowly with a few aromatics, some vegetables, and thyme. The version made in many Japanese households usually starts with fish bones and kombu, a type of kelp, because that's what's been historically available and affordable, not because there's something irreplaceable about that specific combination. If you have chicken feet, oxtail, or even vegetable scraps and a modest cut of meat with bone in it, the same basic principle applies. What matters is the slow cooking time, generally an hour or more, which allows the connective tissue to break down properly. The fourth point is about how this fits into an actual week, rather than becoming one more thing you feel obligated to do perfectly. Emiko doesn't make broth every single day. She makes a larger batch once or twice a week and uses it as the base for soups, for cooking rice, or simply as something warm to drink before a meal. This is worth mentioning because so much health advice assumes unlimited time and energy, and that's simply not realistic for most people juggling work, family, and everything else that fills a week. A pot of broth made on a Sunday can quietly become part of several meals without demanding daily effort. The fifth point, and one that deserves honesty rather than exaggeration, is that broth isn't a guaranteed fix, and it isn't a replacement for medical care if you have specific skin, joint, or health concerns. It's reasonable to think of it as a supportive habit, one that may contribute to giving your body useful raw materials, rather than as something that reverses aging or replaces a balanced diet. If you have specific health conditions, are taking medication, or have concerns about your diet, it's always worth speaking with a doctor or a registered dietitian, especially if you're considering any significant change to what you eat regularly. There's also a quieter benefit here that has nothing to do with collagen directly, and everything to do with how a habit like this fits into a day. Sipping something warm before a meal, especially something you made yourself rather than something you bought, tends to slow things down for a moment. It's not a dramatic ritual. It's closer to the idea of hara hachi bu, the practice of eating until you're comfortably satisfied rather than completely full, which is easier to notice when you begin a meal with something warm and unhurried rather than rushing straight into the main dish. The sixth point worth mentioning is what this approach avoids, which may be just as important as what it provides. It avoids the uncertainty of supplement quality and sourcing, since not all collagen powders are created equal, and some contain far less of the active ingredient than their packaging suggests. It avoids the ongoing cost of repurchasing a product every month. And it avoids the quiet disappointment that comes from spending money on something you're not sure is doing anything at all. Making broth at home means you know exactly what went into it, and you're not depending on a label to tell you the truth. None of this is meant to suggest that every woman in Japan drinks broth every day, or that this is some universal secret unique to one culture. Plenty of people around the world already make similar dishes, from Jewish chicken soup to Filipino sinigang to French pot au feu, all built on the same basic idea of extracting nutrients slowly from bones and connective tissue over time. What Japanese cooking offers here isn't ownership of the idea. It's a particularly simple, accessible version of it, one that doesn't require special equipment or rare ingredients. If you wanted to try this yourself, the version doesn't need to be complicated. A modest amount of fish bones, chicken bones, or a bony cut of meat, simmered gently with water, a piece of kelp or a few vegetables, and a little ginger for warmth. For around an hour, produces a broth you can strain and keep in the refrigerator for several days. Used as a base for soup, for cooking grains, or simply warmed and sipped on its own, it becomes a small, repeatable part of a week rather than a demanding new project. What Emika would probably tell you, if you asked her directly, is that she never thought of this as an anti-aging routine at all. She thought of it as dinner. That distinction matters more than it might seem. So much of what gets marketed as a secret or a breakthrough is often just an ordinary habit. Practiced consistently, without the pressure of being a performance or a routine you have to get exactly right. Healthy aging was never really about finding the one product that changes everything. It's about the quieter habits that accumulate over months and years, the ones that don't need packaging or a price tag to be worth doing. A bowl of broth won't undo the years, and nobody making that claim honestly should be trusted. But it might be one small, sustainable piece of taking care of yourself, made with ingredients you already understand, in your own kitchen, at your own pace. That, in the end, might be the most reassuring part of all of this. You don't need to buy your way into feeling better about how you're aging. Sometimes the most effective habit is also the simplest one, sitting quietly on the stove, doing its work one slow hour at a time. If you take one thing away from this, let it be permission to stop chasing the next product before you've even given the simplest option a real try. You don't need a new subscription, a new shipment arriving every month, or a new promise printed on a label. You need a pot, a little time on a Sunday afternoon, and the willingness to treat your own kitchen as capable of doing something a bottle never quite managed. That's not a lesser choice. For a lot of women, it turns out to be the better one.